Krishna Krishna Govinda Vidyadhar Krishna Govinda Narayana Hari Chidananda Govinda Madhava Chidananda Narayana Hari. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha Krishna Paramatmane Namaha Hari Hari Hari. So we were halfway, almost to the end of Kaliya and Krishna's battle. We'll finish that quickly and move forward. For a while, Krishna allowed this fast to go on, that he was caught up in the coils of the serpent, that he was being crushed to death. Kaliya himself thought that the end of Krishna had come. Suddenly he felt that something was happening to him. A great weight seemed to be pressing on him, his whole body. It seemed to him as though someone was trying to tear him apart. He saw that Krishna was growing in size and he was now straining his hold, but it was of no avail. Krishna slipped easily out of his coils, and the sight brought new life into the hearts of those who were watching. Despair now gave place to curiosity. With wonderment they stood watching what was happening. A ray of hope began to illuminate their faces, since their little Krishna had managed to escape from the hold of Kaliya. It's like a match going on. Everybody is sitting and watching. So when something succeeds, everybody is clapping on Krishna's side. There is only Krishna's side, that is the whole problem. Kaliya doesn't have anybody. Anyway. Come quickly, Krishna, they shouted. Come to the banks and we will pull you out. You can escape the clutch of this demon. Come before he gets hold of you again. So shouted all those on the banks. Krishna smiled at all of them, held out his palms as if to say, just watch and stay, you'll see a lot of fun. Oh, Krishna said, Kaliya's anger knew no bounds. He opened his 5 hoods to the full, and hissing like the sea, he pounced on Krishna with the desire to sting him with all his fangs. He beat against the young form again, and every time Krishna eluded the strike of the snake. Here, there and everywhere was to be seen Krishna. A dread Kaliya chased him. His fangs were poised to strike. Just when Kaliya was sure he got Krishna, the young boy would escape, and the game went on for a while. Actually, it's all drama. Think you're going to catch, then it's gone. You're going to catch, it's gone. Always happens. Not only for Kaliya, for all. But Kaliya has 5 heads additionally. So there was nothing but hatred in the red eyes of the snake, and it seemed as though he was ready to burn the child with his fury. The child who had dared to defy him and play with him. The pranks were not to his liking. Kaliya wanted to stop the game, finish it off now. Suddenly Krishna leaped into the sky and landed right on the heads of the snake. Then there was great commotion everywhere. Hey, what's that? Krishna had evidently beaten Kaliya since he was standing on the head of the snake. Try as he would, Kaliya could not extricate himself from under the feet of Krishna. Krishna stood on one of the heads and Kaliya tried to sting him with the other four. The waters of the lake were lashing against the banks and they made sweet music as the waves kept dancing in front of the Lord. His twinkling feet danced with abandon and they were lit up by the gems on the heads of the snake. The tempo rose and there was no sign of Krishna ending his dance. Lashing of Kaliya's tail began to grow less and less and less because he was becoming tired. His exhaustion could be seen. He was still now spitting poison. Now he was spitting blood instead. Seeing the glorious dance of Krishna, the denizens of the heavens rejoiced. So did the people standing on the banks of the river. They were no longer afraid for Krishna. Krishna danced, and every time a head of Kaliya tried to rise up, Krishna stamped on it. Kaliya now realized who it was that was standing on his head dancing. Took him some time because Kaliya thought he could subdue anybody. After this exercise, he knew this is not an ordinary person. We know who's standing on top of my head. This is felt also by evildoers, dacoits, all the people who resort to tamasic life. They always try to fight Krishna, fight the good. But after a few proper blows on their head, they begin to realize who are we dealing with. This is not an ordinary. This is the Paramatman. And then actually they attain moksha. That is the interesting part. Kaliya now realized who it was that graced his head by dancing on it. He saluted Narayana mentally. His wives were now sure that the Lord would die if Krishna did not show any mercy. They rose up to the surface of the lake and worshipped Krishna. They prayed to him to spare the life of their Lord. Krishna saw them and their children, and they were standing with their palms held together. They said, "You are the Lord of the Lords. The punishment you have meted out, O Lord, is right and fair. We are not questioning that at all. Purpose of your avatar is to subdue the wicked. You have done that now. You have punished us. According to us, it is not punishment, but your divine grace granted to us. We know when Lord Narayana decides to punish a wrongdoer, his real intention is to grace the sinner and to rid him of all the sins he has committed. Because of the sins committed in previous birth, we have been doomed to assume the dread form of snakes. But then this Kaliya has also accumulated a lot of punya, good punya, in some previous birth. Or else, how could he have the good fortune of having your lotus feet planted on his head? The great Lakshmi herself performs pujas and penances for a touch of dust of those feet. When such is done without even asking for it, Kaliya has been granted the privilege, the good fortune of the touch of your sacred feet. Can anyone be more lucky? After touching your feet, no one desires heavenly bliss or the status of Brahma or the enviable position of being the Lord of the nether worlds. That bliss has been granted to our husband. So we salute you with all our hearts. We have seen you and we have no desire now left. What desire to be left? We have seen the Lord. Oh, but we have to ask you to spare Kaliya for us. You are the sea of affection and forgiveness, and we are thirsty for a drop from that ocean. Please forgive him the sin and grant him life. He was ignorant of your real nature and he behaved as he did because of that. Please grant us this boon. Let Kaliya live and make us happy. Meanwhile, Kaliya was limp with fatigue. His heads were all hanging down and nothing was left of his arrogance. Krishna jumped off his head. Kaliya then started to breathe with difficulty. Holding his palms together, he said, "My Lord, it is hard for one to abandon the dread disease." What is this dread disease? Called I. Huh? It is this ego which is the ruin of all living beings. And I was smitten by this dread disease. But now you have cured me. My serpentine form is embodiment of wickedness, and I acted according to my nature. I have now been roused from the sleep of ignorance. I know who you are. I will never go back to my old nature. Krishna said, Kaliya, you are forgiven. But you should not stay here anymore. Go back to the ocean and live with your kinsfolk. A river is meant for the use of human beings, and all their lives depend on the river and her water. It's right that you should not poison it. Anyone who listens to the story of your conflict will never be afraid of snakes. Are you afraid of snakes? Yes? No, she is not. One child has imbibed. Go back to where you came from. Seeing him standing silent, Krishna smiled and said, I know what is worrying you. In the Ramanaka island, there is the dread of Garuda for you. So you are worried. Let me assure you that Garuda will not harass you anymore. When I danced on your heads, my foot has marked each one of your hoods. Just check. Garuda will leave you alone. Kaliya worshipped Krishna with flowers and garlands and lotuses. He then prostrated before him with his wives and children and went away to the island by name Ramanaka. Yamuna became free of poison which polluted her. So Kaliya, bearing the imprint of the Lord's feet on his hoods, left the lake and went away. Water became sweet and pure. The Gopas and Gopis rejoiced when they saw Krishna emerge from the lake like the full moon after the eclipse. Yashoda, Rohini, Nanda were all happy. They rushed to welcome him. Balarama, however, strolled lazily towards his brother, and they embraced each other warmly. Only they understood the smile which lit up their faces. Elders and also Nanda couple were caught up in the maya of the Lord. They spoke to one another and said, it is indeed providence which saved our little Krishna from the danger of Kaliya's poison. Gifts should be given away lavishly and so on and so forth. This was even after seeing with their own eyes the divinity of Krishna when he danced on the heads of Kaliya. So great was the maya which Krishna deliberately wove around the simple folk of Vrindavan. Yashoda took Krishna on her lap and shed tears of joy. They all thanked Narayana for it, and there was great celebration all around. The cows and the boys had got up as though from a long sleep. None of them went home that night. they spent on the banks of the Yamuna. Okay, now we will not discuss Ramanaka and what happened there. We will move forward. The rainy season. The heat of summer had abated. Grishma Ritu was over and Varsha Ritu was fast approaching. The skies lost their pale blue and there were clouds scattered here and there, the harbingers of rain clouds that were to come. Soon the sky was overcast and a dull grey skin seemed to be stretched across the entire expanse of the sky. All on a sudden there could be heard deep rumblings from far. The darkness of the skies would rent for a moment to two streaks of lightning. It looked like the three gunas are all in the same place. The sky made one think of the Brahman. It was covered by dense black clouds which stood for Tamoguna. The thunder which was rumbling seemed to personify Rajoguna, and the lightning which lit up the darkness, the Sattva-guna. Like the Paramatman, when caught in the avaranas, becomes the Jivatma. Even so, the sky appeared to be full of clouds of thunder and lightning. For the last 8 months, the sun had been sucking dry all the waters. Now he decided to return it to Mother Earth. This was like the action of kings who take as much wealth as they can in the form of taxes. And when the time comes, return them to the people in the form of benefits. If the last part is not there, we are done. Great souls are prepared to lay down their lives if by their action they can benefit humanity. Even so, the clouds annihilated themselves by giving all their waters to the earth below. Blown hither and thither by the strong clouds, water was shed incessantly. The earth, which had become thin, emaciated because of the heat of summer, once again became luscious and full of green. Completely luscious, all green came back. When night set in, the stars and the planets could not be seen. The only light that could be found was the twinkling, uncertain light shed by the glowworms. Seemed like the Kaliya, when Vedic parts would be forgotten and only improper and immoral ways of life would be evident. The frogs, which had been silent till now, began to croak incessantly all of a sudden, which brought to mind the parallel of young boys at the studies, who, finding their master approaching, will suddenly begin to recite their lessons in a loud voice. Small and insignificant brooks and streams, which till now were unnoticed, suddenly filled up with water. And so on and so on. Everything looked beautiful on the face of the earth, which was drenched in pure water from the clouds. The water was sweet, fresh and cool. The peacocks were spreading their plumage and were dancing everywhere. Trees which had been dry and thirsty were now filled with sap and looked satisfied. At places the banks of the river had been broken. Wherever the eye could see, there was water and green, and the eye could do nothing but feast itself on the glorious face of the earth. Now, the young boys of Vrindavan enjoyed themselves in the rain. They delighted in rushing to the caves, sitting there, eating the roots and other delicacies, getting drenched in the rain. Krishna would stand there staring at the falling rain, at the mountain torrents rushing down, at the cows which were heavy with their milk and which walked towards their beloved Krishna slowly and softly. The boys with Krishna would sit on the rocks and eat their food, watching the river water flowing rapidly in their sight. Krishna would suddenly lie down on the grass and stare for hours at the sky and at the tree tops which would wave in strong winds. So passed the rainy season, bringing joy to all. Winds became suddenly less violent. They became soft and gentle. The sky became clear. The lotuses bloomed again, indicating that the minds of yogis, which for a long time strayed from the path of meditation, had come back from their lapse, when again calm and filled with tranquility. There's a huge talk on the different stages of human life. Should we do it or go ahead? I'll sum it up. Human life has 4 stages: brahmacharya, grihastha ashrama, vanaprastha, and sannyasa. These are the 4 stages. That's all the description is about. But the last stage is sannyasa. One is now said to have shed everything which binds him to the earth. His love for home, for family and belongings are said to have been left behind, and is on his way to moksha. But, says Sukadeva, it is not easy to be a sannyasin. You think you are a sannyasin. I'm not. You think you are a sannyasin, but you have groups inside the ashram. You are still fighting who's going to succeed you. There is a fight going on. And all the people who look after you are usually women. I mean, if you are a man, sannyasi. The other way around, which if you find a woman who says, you'll see that all men look after everything. Some of them may even look like gundas, but they're there. So it is not easy to be a sannyasi. You can say I'm becoming a sannyasin, but the sannyasin sins don't go away so easy. One among that millions is a true sannyasin. I have lived with one who did not wear an okaro, who did not have a pair of footwear, who did not have a cloth to cover his upper body, who did not have an ashram, who did not have a house. Gita calls such people aniketa, one who does not have a house. So I know what it is. All the other pomp and glory are all done by the public. Nothing in it. Anyway, it's not easy. Yes, it's possible, but it is not easy. Try as he might, man finds that his senses are sometimes too powerful for him to resist. And the arch enemies are 6 in number, led by the worst of all of them, Kama. Surrounded him on all sides, very often he falls victim to their machinations. At this stage, even if you are taking sannyas, this stage, it is only bhakti that can save you. With his mind set on the Lord, man can gain victory over his troubles. There will not be troubles anymore. Bhakti is the one thing that helps man all through his lifetime. It is the only yoga that one needs to hold on tightly to. When Sharad Ritu came, it was like the bhakti for the Lord clearing every obstacle. The sky was rid of the clouds which had been black and heavy, like the troubles that come to a brahmachari. The animals which should stay huddled together during the rainy seasons are now free to go their own ways, like the grihastha who can live without attachment. The earth was rid of her slush and muddiness, like the vanaprastha gets rid of all his physical discomforts with the help of bhakti. The waters became clear and sweet, like the mind of a sannyasin, with his mind filled to the brim with devotion to the Lord. The clouds which had become white and light after they had shed their accumulated waters looked like the munis who were at peace because they had cast out the love and attachment for anything else. The mountains now allowed clear, placid water to flow in several selected spots, like learned and wise who impart their knowledge to only a select few and not to everyone. When the water was plentiful, in small puddles during the rainy season, fish and other creatures invaded them. However, when the rains had stopped, the waters were drying up. But these creatures, ignorant of the lessening of the water, went on staying there resembling people who live engrossed in the worldly things and worldly actions and worldly affairs, not realizing that day by day life is getting short. The earth shed its muddiness, and the transient creepers which covered it, like one with the help of his intellect, sheds the inconstant things like I and mine. When the rains stopped, the sea was not turbulent anymore, but placid like the mind of one who has learned to control his mind and actions. The sun began to burn hot again during Sharad Ritu. But the moon made the lights pleasant for everyone, making them forget the discomforts of the day. It was like Atma Jnana, the knowledge about self, destroying the attachment one has to the body. Body or body? Body. The night sky with its bright stars and white cloudless sky was like the intellect which is all sattva guna, which has reached the bone of knowledge. The world of men had been thrown out of action during the rainy season, and now when the rains were over, when the rain clouds had become white once again, when the sky had become clear, life began to assume its previous form. People began to resume their daily tasks. There was freshness in the forests which had been washed clean by the rains. The lakes were full of lotuses, red, white and blue. The rivers now had slowed down in their speed, and the mad rush was not there. They were flowing silently and gently. The very air was perfumed with the scent of the flowers which began to bloom again. Vrindavan was drenched in beauty. Now here in Vrindavan, there was a grove by name Madhuvana on the banks of Yamuna. Sweet Vana, Madhuvana. Krishna, with his team of cowherds and cows and calves, entered the grove one day. The waters of the Yamuna were clear and soft and sweet. The air was laden with the perfume of lotuses blooming on the lakes. All the trees were covered with flowers, and there was music made by bees hovering around the flowers and by the birds living on the trees. Everyone was in a gay and happy mood, and they entered the grove with music and dancing. Then Krishna took up his flute in his hands and breathed music into it. The notes spilling out of it could be heard for miles around. And who heard it? The Gopis heard it. They became quite intoxicated with it and with love for Krishna. They talked to each other about him and about his many feats which had held them spellbound all these years. They thought of Krishna and his handsome figure. His hair was all curly and the curls would fly in the breeze when he walked. On the top of his head he had stuck the feather of a peacock, and this lent an unbelievably lovely glow to his face. His figure was perfect like that of a dancer, and his ears were decorated with white flowers of the Karnikara tree. He was wearing a garland of flowers. The flowers were of different hues, white, red, and yellow. The garland was called Vaijayanti. He would always dress himself in silk, which was golden yellow in color, and his dark complexion was set off very well by the yellow silk. Dressed as though for a festive occasion, Krishna stood in the midst of his friends and touched the flute with his lips and began to play sweet tunes on it. The youngsters with him danced to the tune of the flute, and there was great rejoicing in Madhuvana. The Gopis spoke among themselves. They would talk of Krishna and nothing else. One Gopi said, "When I think of the face of Krishna with his lips touching the flute and his eyes bent lovingly on his friends and on the cows, on the trees, everything around him, can one think of anything else? Fortunate indeed are we that he should be among us always. I feel jealous of the flute. When I see how fortunate the flute is, he's always keeping it here. It can be near the lips of my beloved Krishna and touch them while here I am, pining for a look. Fortunate is Vrindavan, which has Krishna's feet, touching it all over. The peacocks dance with joy since Krishna plays music for them. Bamboo trees shed honey because they are proud that the child has been chosen by Krishna for his music. All the animals at the foot of the hill stand like they have been painted pictures still. The very earth is proud since Krishna has chosen to walk on her. Fortunate are the deer which stand by the side of Krishna when he makes music in Madhuvan. The divine dancers, while passing in the sky, stop in the tracks and are spellbound by the music of the flute. They pay no heed to the flowers which are slipping away from their hair, nor to their silken garments which get displaced by the passing breeze. The cows have stopped grazing, and the grass in their mouth is just half chewed. And they pay no heed to the grass which is falling down from their mouths. The calves stop halfway through their feed, and the milk is flowing in driblets from the corners of their mouths. They have forgotten to swallow the milk. Sages are said to think only on the Lord and not think on anything else. If such is the case, then all the inmates of this forest are sages, since they are doing just this. They look at Krishna, they listen to Krishna, they think of nothing else but Krishna. The very river has fallen in love with him. In its tiny waves it touches the feet of Krishna. See, it says, "Be kind to me." Huh? Govardhana Giri is the most fortunate of all hills in the world since Krishna, forever wandering on its slope. His cows are grazed here and is ever playing in its caves. He plucks flowers growing on its slopes and fruits from the trees. Like a bhakta offers flowers, fruits and water to his god, Govardhana does this to him. Not a single day has been missed. It is strange that Krishna's loving eyes rest lovingly on the slopes of the hill Govardhana. What about us? Said the Gopis. The Gopis were full of love for Krishna, and the season acted like a stimulant to their senses. Gopis had heard that the month of Margashirsha was the holiest of the months, and that prayers offered to Devi Katyayani would always be answered. Month The month was the earlier one during the season by name Hemanta, and the river Yamuna was filled with pure and clear water. There is a Devi Katyayani temple here. Have you seen? Yes. No. You were in Vrindavan, you didn't go anywhere. No. Anyway. So, the young maidens in the houses of the Gopas decided to pray to Devi Katyayani. Early in the morning, they would observe all the rules of the Vrita, come to the banks of the Yamuna. They would bathe in the cold waters of the river, and on the banks would fashion the form of Devi with mud. They would then offer fruits and flowers and naivedya to her and pray to her to grant them their desire. Devi Katyayani Mahaye Yogini Adishwari, we are your devotees. Please be kind to us. Please make Krishna, the son of Nanda Gopal, look on us with love one glance. Ask every one of the young maids, and they spoke no other words in their minds except these. The days were passing, and every day there would be seen in the streets of Vrindavan the crowd of girls singing, dancing, holding hands, running towards the bank of the Yamuna. Quarters would resound with the music of the young Gopis, and they would spend a long time in the river to their heart's content and singing about. They were enjoying, even though they asked Katyayani, let him look at me, they were enjoying. The enjoyment of not being looked at and the enjoyment of being looked at are both enjoyments. Right? The enjoyment of pining is different from the enjoyment of seeing. Both are enjoyments. Anyway, one morning, Krishna decided to play a prank on them. No lesson for young men here. Silently and without their being aware of it, we followed them to the banks of Yamuna. And they were all well and truly submerged in the waters. He came out of his hiding place. Proper rascal. Came out of his hiding place. So lost were they in their enjoyment on their own, repeating Krishna's pranks and his many deeds of wondrous behavior, that they did not notice this prank. Quietly he crept toward the spot where they had left all their clothes. Now this doesn't sound holy. This is Krishna. He collected all their clothes and climbed quickly to the top of the tree on the bank, and he sat there waiting and listening to their talk. When they had tired of their bathing, the young Gopis came to the river bank. To their dismay, they found that the heap of clothes were missing. Went back to the waters and tried to locate with their eyes where the clothes were. They looked in vain. Their eyes were darting hither and thither, but they could not find the clothes. When they were at a loss as to what should be done, they heard Krishna's voice. He said, "Hey, Gopis, your clothes are here with me. I promise to give them to you, all of you, if you come here and ask me for them. I feel very sorry for you. Please come up and ask me. You have become so thin with the fasts and other strenuous vratas that you are observing, you will not be able to stand in the waters very long. So I am telling you, come all together or come one by one. Accept your clothes from me. The girls did not know what to do or what to say. They looked at each other and they could not even be angry with Krishna, whom they loved, and for whose sake they were rigorously doing puja to Katyayani. The water was cold and they were shivering because of the morning chill. Finally they said, Krishna, you don't torment us with this prank of yours. You are a good boy, we know that. Please give our clothes back to us. We are feeling cold and we cannot bear it. Son of the Lord of Vrindavan as you are, you should not persecute your subjects. This is not right. We are your slaves and we will obey every one of your commands. Please, give us back our clothes or else. Hearing the half-finished sentence, Krishna said, or else, what will you do? One of the girls, bolder than the others, said, we will go to the king and complain about you. Krishna laughed and said, how? You contradict yourself. You say that you will obey every command of mine. All right, this is my command. Come here and take your clothes. Girls realized that they had no alternative. With their forms trembling in the morning chill, with their eyes frightened lest someone else should come to the river banks and see their plight, they rushed towards the tree with their slender arms trying to cover up as much as they could. Krishna had hung out their garments one by one in the boughs of the tree, and mischief in his eyes, he looked at them. Then he said, you are all performing a vrata. Actually. And yet, not knowing the rules of conduct, you are committing the sin of entering the holy waters without any cloth covering you. It is a wrong thing to do. You should have at least worn a bikini, right? It's a wrong thing to do. It is an insult to Varuna, the Lord of the waters. Make expiation. You will have to keep both your hands on your heads and make Anjali to me. Only then will I return your clothes to you. They tried to cover up whatever was visible with one hand and to salute him with the other. But Krishna was shaking his head. He said an Anjali is made up of two palms. My dear girls, and again you should not salute me with one hand. It is bad. Unless as an incomplete puja. The vrata you have been observing all these days will be futile if you persist in insulting Varuna. The young Gopis did not want their vrata to be wasted. And again they knew that Krishna would persist in this wicked game. There is no way. Time was running out fast. It was time for the entire Gokula to come for the morning ablutions. They roused themselves out of their stupa. They held their palms over their heads and walked towards the foot of the tree where Krishna was sitting. Pleased with their utter devotion to him, he gave them back all their clothes. Indeed, it is strange The young girls had been deceived by Krishna. They had been ridiculed by him, and he played with them as if they were puppets in the hands of an artist. The clothes had been stolen by him. Isn't it strange? The girls were not angry with him. They stood looking at him with their eyes drinking his beauty. There was no anger in their minds because of this episode. They loved him so much. Krishna knew what lay behind their observing the vrata for Katyayani. And he was full of love for these young maidens who loved him so much. He spoke to them in a kind voice. He said, I know what is in your minds, and I have accepted your devotion to me. Believe me, devotion to me has never gone unrewarded. You have given me your hearts and your minds, and there's nothing in your minds except love for me. Listen to me. The love which is lodged in your hearts is so pure, it can never become lust of the type which lies in the ordinary human heart. Note it, please note. Krishna's little lecture, Satsang, after doing silly things. The love which is lodged in your hearts is so pure, it can never become the lust of the type which lies in the ordinary human heart. The seed of a plant will give forth new shoots when planted in the earth. But it is fried or baked, then it will not be able to sprout again. Seed. Even so, love of a human type, which is for human beings, will give birth to involvements with this world. But love which is directed towards me will be an end in itself. It will never make you earthbound. Go home with the assurance from me that your efforts will not go unrewarded. Overwhelmed by his words of assurance, the Gopi maidens went back to their homes, and they were a strangely subdued group when they entered their homes. Only one thought was uppermost in the mind of each of them. Krishna had said, I know what is in your minds, and I assure you, your vrita will not go unrewarded. That meant that Krishna had accepted their love for him. What was more, had told them in not so many words that he also loved them. Instead of the song and dance which is part of them, the girls now moved about as though they harbored a great secret in their hearts, and they moved about with smiles of joy in their eyes and a sense of happiness which comes of having attained a desired object. And so the days passed. Once, Krishna noticed that the entire population of Vrindavan was busy about something. In his house also everyone was busy, apparently preparing for some great event. Though he knew what it was all about, Krishna approached his father Nanda and very humbly stood before him. And he found the old men of the community also there talking. They were all there, and the young child went and stood and said, Father, everybody seems to be busy about something. There's great excitement everywhere. What is happening? Tell me, Father, what it is all about. Nanda took him on his lap and fondling his unruly curls, said, My son, we are all preparing a yaga, to perform a yaga. Yaga? Asked Krishna with eyes wide open. Who is the god to whom this yaga is to be performed? Father, there must be some great desire in your hearts which is prompting you to do this. You have always told me what I had wanted to know, and now you must tell me what is it that is you desire for a yaga to be performed. People who have ever held the Atman to be greater than everything else, who can see no difference between theirs and those of others, no difference between friends and foe, who have learned to treat all opposites alike, will have no desires. So what yaga are you doing? For whom? People of weak intellect who have small desires, whose aims are ordinary and worldly. It is those who perform yajnas and such like which have their basis in the karma kanda. Strangely enough, when a man who knows the many nuances of what he is doing to perform the rites, on the other hand, a man who has blind faith in these does the same things. It is the former who is rewarded for his efforts and not the other one. Now, Father, tell me about the yaga you are performing. I want to know about it. Are you doing it after studying the purpose of it? Or are you observing it because it had been done before by your ancestors and before by their ancestors and you don't want to break the custom? Please explain to me what the yaga is, what the motive behind is, the motive which is spurring you to perform the yaga. Nanda said, I will explain it to you. You are right in one thing. I have no personal wish or desire to be fulfilled. I am doing it only for the general good. Indra, the Lord of the heavens, is the God who gives us rain. The clouds are meant to be his limbs. Our wealth, you know, is cattle and grass. With the gifts of Indra, we worship him. What has been his gift to us? We use as a means to achieve the ends of man. Dharma, artha, kama, when observed properly, will lead to moksha. It is the cloud which rewards man and his efforts. This worship of Indra has been the custom since so many generations. And we have always been observing this yaga by name, Indra's festival. It does not bode good for any man who does not perform this properly. No man should be indifferent towards Indra and his bounty. Krishna thought to himself and decided to tease Indra and see the fun. He therefore looked at all the elders who had assembled there and said, I do not agree with you. Nanda and the others were taken aback. They said, you are a child. You don't know what you are saying. Krishna said, please listen to my arguments carefully. If after I have talked to you, you are not convinced, you can proceed with the yaga. They are all curious as what this little child was going to say. They sat in silence while Krishna spoke. So, Krishna is still referred to in the Bhagavat as a child. So when he climbed up the trees and took the Gopis' clothes, he was a child. Don't think otherwise. Anyway, and Krishna gave a small lecture. He said, living beings are born as a result of karma. And they cease to exist because of the same karma. Happiness, sorrow, fear, well-being are all results of one's own karma. I do not see the hand of any deva in this cycle of births and deaths and the fortunes of man while he is alive. Even if you say there is a deva who gives man what he deserves, Even this deva will have to act only according to the karma of a man and the results of it. What we have done in our previous birth is what governs our fortunes in this birth. No God nor Indra can change this fate of man. People are dependent entirely on their nature, swabhava, which is molded by karma. The karma which they have done in their previous birth. Whether he is an asura or a human being depends entirely on this. A living being is born in the high range of human beings or in the lower range of animals according to karma. Even among human beings, he can belong to the high order or the low order according to his karma. Enemy or a friend of one who is neither are all naturally molded by karma. Karma is what decides and governs the life and actions of man, not any celestial being. And so, a man who is still under the sway of karma and swabhava should worship karma as his lord. His code of conduct should be dictated by karma. When he is dependent on one thing, it is wrong and untrue for him to accept another god and worship him. A Brahmin lives by his knowledge of the Vedas. A Kshatriya by protecting the country which is his. A Vaishya lives by selling and buying by the power of his words and his ability to talk glibly, while a Shudra lives by serving his superiors. They are all human beings. Agriculture, selling and buying, guarding the cows, lending money are all four types of living adopted by workers. As for us, we belong to the third category, which is purely guarding the cows and living out of the wealth obtained by them. The three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas, are respectively the causes of living, birth and destruction. Static and moving objects are all the results of rajoguna. And the clouds are formed in all the four quarters because of this guna. The rain on the earth and beings are able to exist because of this rain. What has Indra to do with this rain? It is but a natural phenomenon and he is not responsible for it. As for us, we have no land which we rule. We have no cities and we have no country which we can call ours. Not a village, not even huts which we can call ours. We are simply wandering folk who live in the forest on the slopes of these hills. We have but one wish, to thank the giver of grass to our cows, which in their turn give us our wealth. I suggest therefore that we worship cows, the Brahmins who teach us, and the hill which goes by the name of Govardhana, the nourisher of cows. You have collected so many objects in the worship of Indra. Let them all be used to worship Govardhana. Keep the milk of the cows as an offering for the hill. Prepare a feast and make an offering to the hill. Summon well-read brahmanas to kindle a sacrificial fire and make them offer all the things that we get from cows like milk, curds, butter, ghee into the fire reciting the holy mantras. Let us feed the poor and the hungry. Let the cows be worshipped and Govardhana hill. Let us all dress in our silk and ornaments. Let us apply sandal paste to our bodies and wear flowers on our necks and hair. In this festive mood, let us go round the Govardhana and thank the hill for its bounty. The earliest environmentalist that you have heard of was Krishna. The earliest and the first environmentalist. He said, why are you doing all this? Which Indra are you calling? Go worship Govardhana, it gives us everything. Make sure that you offer everything to Govardhana hill. Take care of the plants. I have given you my arguments and my suggestions. If it is agreeable, please do what I have suggested. The Lord, who was time itself, had assumed the form of a young child, and he wanted to punish Indra for his arrogance. That is the reason. Finally, when the Lord speaks, is it strange that Nanda and other elders were convinced? They accepted his suggestions and performed the pujas suggested by Krishna. They made the Brahmanas recite the sacred mantras and pour ajyas into the fire. They then worshipped the Brahmins and then the cows and later on the Govardhana hill. They placed the offerings at the foot of the hill. To convince them that they have done the right thing, Krishna assumed a suitable form and announced that he was the spirit of Govardhana. No one but Balarama knew who this spirit was. The Gopis and the Gopalas dressed in the best clothes, and with music and dancing they went round the hill, everyone prostrated before the spirit of Govardhana. They were thrilled at the thought that their worship had been rewarded so soon. The festival was over. The Gopalas returned to Brajabhumi, their home. Indra was furious. He could not brook this insult, which had been deliberately offered by the Gopalas at the suggestion of Krishna. He decided to punish all of them, and he summoned the group of clouds by name Samvartaka, and he said, look on this cowherd clan which has dared to insult me on the advice of a human being who is still a child. He tells them that the offerings made to me are of no use and the entire clan obeys him. They have treated me with indifference. They have not performed the Indra festival which they were performing all these years. I will punish them for this. These fools are hoping to cross the ocean of births and deaths with the help of a boat, which is a boat only in name. They know nothing of Atma Vidya, and the nothing of the rituals which are performed for the attainment of salvation by men. They only pay heed to the words of Krishna. And what sort of a person is this Krishna? He's a young child, he's ignorant, and he talks too much. He considers himself to be very wise and is arrogant that he does not know who is to be honored. And such a man, nay, a child, has become the mentor of this clan of ignorant cowards. And they have displeased me. They have become arrogant as a result of the wealth they have acquired somehow. I command you, go and punish them. Make them lose their pride. Kill all the cows which have been worshipped instead of me. I will follow you on my Airavata and see that the proper punishment is meted out to these people. The entire group of clouds which had been released by Indra traveled fast towards Vrindavana. All of a sudden in Vrindavan, it began to rain. No one paid any attention in the beginning. But then it became a downpour. Started raining so heavily, cows and bullocks. I'm using that instead of cats and dogs. All of a sudden in Vrindavan, it began to rain. Lightning flashed incessantly. Thunder crashed from crag to crag, spurred by the furious winds by name Havaha and Pravaha. The clouds rained with a ruthless fervor, and hailstones began to fall in great quantities. The ground had become so covered with water No ups and downs could be seen. It was like the sea. The cows began to be scared of the fury of the lashing rain. The cowherds and their wives and children were helpless against the onslaught. And they went to Krishna and asked him to help them out of this. But you gave us a speech, now you help us out. It was pitiable to see the cows protecting themselves by putting their heads between their legs. The Gopas set up a wail and they cried, Krishna, you have to save us now from this danger. Save us from the wrath of Indra and his rain clouds. We listen to you quietly. Krishna knew what lay behind this downpour. He could gauge the anger of Indra by the devastation he had planned so deliberately. He thought to himself, now is the time to punish this fellow, who has considered himself to be the lord of all the three worlds. He assumes too much. He does not benefit anyone in such a high position to be filled with ego. I will show how I can do all by myself, protect my people who are being harassed. When they were all looking, Krishna went to the foot of the hill Govardhana and like a child uproots a mushroom and holds it in his hand. Krishna lifted Govardhana aloft and told his people, get under this mountain, all of you, with your cows and calves and all the things that you need. Please rest assured that it will not slip out of my hand and crush all of you. I promise you it will not. As it is, you are all scared of this torrent and this storm. Your troubles are over. I am there to give you all protection. They were staring alternately at Krishna and the immense hill. Knowing what they were afraid of, Krishna assured them. As they were bid, the Gopas rushed to their homes, collected all the essential things and went to stay under the hill. Krishna abandoned all thought of resting. He neither ate nor slept, but stood there holding the hill, while his people stood safe from the rain. I remember some years back, somebody went to a great, later on he became very famous, great Vaishnavite Bhakta of Krishna, and said to him, in the south of India, God is born now. Krishna is born. He said, oh, really? It's very powerful, Krishna. Okay. He said, ask him to take that Govardhana hill in his little finger, and then I will admit and agree with what you say. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Get out of this house, he said. So, when they were all looking, Krishna went, okay, he held it up. No food, no drink. The deluge went on for 7 days and 7 nights. It would not stop. But Indra's anger was of no avail. The people whom he desired to punish were safe from the rain. Why? Because of Krishna holding the Govardhana. This yogic achievement of Krishna amazed him and all the denizens of the heavens. Chastened of his arrogance and his pride, Indra withdrew his rain clouds from the skies and the rain stopped. The skies became blue once again and the earth began to show signs of drying up. Krishna spoke to his people words of joy and said, the rains have ceased, the sun has come back, the skies are blue, the earth is warm. You can all come out of the shelter and go back to your homes. You can now resume your daily routine. The rains will never more visit you out of season. Again they did as they were bid and went back to Vrindavan. From a distance they saw Krishna still standing with the hill Govardhana in his hand. And while they were watching, he placed it on the ground. So what is another name for Krishna? Govardhana Giridhari. The youngsters danced around him, and the elders blessed him with their arms raised. In the skies also was heard the music made by heavenly instruments, and the devas rained flowers on Krishna. After the incident of Govardhana, the dwellers in Vrindavan began to seriously consider the achievements of Krishna. Till now, okay, Gopis lost their clothes, all right. Kaliya was killed, all right, fine. No, this whole Govardhana hill was raised up and held with the whole of Gokula standing under it. Took time for them to think, what is this happening? What is the achievement of this little boy? Little chit of a fellow with a peacock feather in his head. They knew nothing of his divinity. And they wondered. They said, Nanda, your son is a strange being. How is it possible for a child to do all this? He is not at all like the son of a cowherd. He is set here in Vrindavan like a gem set in an ordinary setting. Now that we think back, even as a child, he has wonders. He has worked wonders, sorry. When he was a small child, he killed the Asura woman Putana by sucking her life out of her breast and so on and so on. We have begun to wonder who he is, finally. And what made him born in the midst of us? An ordinary Gopala boy. Simple. The Lord is always with simple people. Ananda thought that he should tell them something which he had been told long ago. He spoke to the elders since he saw that they were genuinely wondering about the wonder boy. He said, I think I will try to tell you what I know. This is what I think. This is Lord Narayana, who assumes different forms during different yugas. This is also an avatar of the Lord, who has assumed a dark complexion. The wise man Garga told me this once. He said, this child of yours was once the son of Vasudeva, so he is Vasudeva. He has many names and many forms. I know about them, but human beings know nothing of it. He has come to Gokula to bring good fortune to you and for the good of mankind. This son of yours is equal of Narayana for his beauty, his greatness and his fame. Don't be amazed by his actions, Garga had told him. This is what Garga told me, and I believe every word of that wise man. I think Krishna is a divine child, perhaps an amsha of Narayana, not full Narayana. And so his actions, which amaze us, are but natural to him if he is the Lord of the Lords. The elders listened to the words of Nanda and for a while remembered the divinity of Krishna. But then, like things possessed for long do lose their charm and their novelty, men in Vrindavan forgot all about his divinity. And this was what Krishna wanted. He wanted to stay without anybody, but he can't help doing these things. Krishna waited for everyone to move away from the hill by name Govardhana, then he placed it on the earth. When he was alone, Indra came to him, strangely subdued and contrite. Indra, who felt ashamed of himself, he could not speak. With him came Kamadhenu, the divine cow. When Krishna was standing all alone at the foot of Govardhana, Indra came near him and fell at his feet, placing his crown at the feet of the Lord. He then stood up and with folded palms spoke to Krishna. Forgive me of this behavior of mine. Almost drowned the whole Gokul, Vrindavan. My Lord, as you are free of tamas and rajas, except for sattva guna, you will not find it hard to forgive. You have only sattva guna, you have no rajas and no tamas. This is called Indric buttering. This universe, which is made up of avidya, ignorance of truth, of maya and illusion, which hides the truth, which lies at the bottom of all this, the combination of the gunas, I say has no effect, nor can it in any way bind you, since you are the sthanu, the permanent among impermanent things. The truth underlying all this, ordinary faults which beset man, do not dare to come near you. Faults like lobha, avarice, which is born of the body and one's involvement with it. Faults which are the causes of the next birth of the human being. Faults which are what so many proofs of the ignorance of man. Even though worldly things do not affect you, even though you are not in any way involved with this world, yet for the sake of establishing dharma, to protect it and to punish those who are walking on the path of adharma, you take a human form and a name and live on this earth like other men. Many of us do not realize it. You are the Father of the universe. You are the time which is without end. Please forgive me for my behavior, which was unforgivable. I was proud of my wealth, of my power, the fact that I am the Lord of the Devas. I did not realize your greatness, and I have committed the most heinous mistakes of underrating you and pitting my power against you. My only prayer is that you should pardon me and guard me from such a predicament in the future. It's the last part of the maska. Krishna smiled at him and said, Indra, you have ever been dear to me. I am your brother Upendra, am I not? Why did I make this incident happen? It was only to make you realize that you are in a bad state. Your power and the feeling that you are the Lord of the heavens has gone to your head. And I felt that you should shed these unbecoming qualities and be your old self again. That was the reason why I maneuvered this incident. I stopped the Gopalas from performing the Indra festival. I have no rancor against you. On the other hand, I have your welfare at heart. I wanted you to be the old Indra who had Upendra for his brother. Let me tell you something. One whose inner eye becomes blinded by, this is beautiful advice to Indra, the Lord of Heavens, from Krishna. I have a piece of advice for you. Let me tell you something. One whose inner eye becomes blinded by the dazzle of gold does not see me when I want to favor him and make him a bhakta. Hiranmayena patrena apasya apihitam mukham. That is the prayer in the Upanishad. Remove your golden shining disc so I may see you face to face. Tattvam bhushana pabrano satya dharmaya drishtave. May I see the truth. What do I do when this happens to someone? I make him lose all his wealth. It is when one is in adversity that he realizes the greatness of the powers above. I have ever been fond of you, don't misunderstand. You can go in peace. Kamadhenu came to him and said, it is our great good fortune. Well, for those who don't know, Kamadhenu is the wish-fulfilling cow. Anything you ask, it will give. You want to become a billionaire, go and ask Kamadhenu. But then when you become a billionaire, then the golden disc will cover everything. You'll see nothing. Then the Lord, if He is kind to you, will remove everything. If He is not kind, He will let it be. Still time. Chalne do. Kamadhenu came to him and said, it is our good fortune that you should have taken it upon yourself to be a cowherd in Vrindavan. You are a protector of my children, and they have no sorrow, and they are happy since you have been tending them. To me, you are the Lord of Lords, you are our king, you are our Indra. I've got the permission of Brahma to crown you as our Lord. You are born to rid the world of adharma which is trying to swallow it. My salutations to you. Kamadhenu then poured the waters brought from the heavens and her own milk and bathed Krishna for the coronation. Indra had asked his Airavata to bring water from the Ganga which flows in the heavens. The river Mandakini, which has its source at the feet of Narayana. Indra then gave the coronation bath to Krishna and said, from that day, only from that day, from now on, you will be known as Govinda. You are Govinda because you protect the cows and you are the protector of the entire world, of all the living beings, and so you are Govinda. The men of the world who are like cattle will in later times talk of you with affection as Govinda. I am Indra, the Lord of the Devas, but you are Indra for all living beings. In all the three worlds, you will be known as Govinda. The name will last forever as Govinda. In the 7 hills also he is called Govinda. Gopika Jivana Smaranam Hari Narayan. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Klim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopi Janavallabhaya Swaha. Hari Om Narayana Hari. So all that happened and he was crowned as Govinda, and that's where we were. Huh? Right. Now, something very strange. When Krishna was crowned, even animals and trustees who were natural enemies, notice, behaved as though they were friends. Indra then took leave of Krishna and went back to the heavens, accompanied by Kamadhenu and other celestials. Krishna walked to his home as though nothing had happened. Okay, now I will choose where to go. Sharad Ritu, on a moonlit night. What happened on a moonlit night? The nights were filled with perfume of jasmine, and the season made Krishna remember the promise he had given to the Gopis on the day, not to be imitated. He had taken away their garments on the banks of the Yamuna early in the morning one day during the month of Margashirsha. The Lord, who is the refuge of all beings, of all things animate and inanimate, made up his mind to make his devotees happy. The night of the full moon was fast approaching. On the night which he had decided on, the moon, the king of the stars, rose in the east. The east was red with the soft rays of the rising moon. He was like a lover who after long absence caresses the face of his beloved, wiping her tears. Even so he assuaged the fatigue of the people with his cool light. Krishna went to the banks of the Yamuna. The sands were silvery and golden with light of the newly risen moon, and the moon itself looked like a huge orange globe. It was as beautiful as the face of Lakshmi. I think Sukha forgot Krishna. Anyway, it was as beautiful as the face of Lakshmi. The forest nearby was bathed in the light of the moon. Krishna took up his flute, placed it on his lips, and breathed softly into it. The notes of the music came from the riverbank far away, reached the houses in Vrindavan, and reached the ears of the young Gopis, who were anyway thinking of Krishna. In their hearts, there was place for no other thought anyway. The music was maddening, and they could not resist it. Each of them wanted to go where Krishna was, and their madness was so intense that they did not even pause to think. They rushed out of their houses and with their earrings, swinging in harmony with their thoughts, they ran towards the banks of the Yamuna. One of the girls, it's very difficult to read the Bhagavad and also think of. Sometimes the mind is divided. You don't know whether you are reading, whether you are there. That is why I sometimes commit mistakes. Sorry. One of the girls was milking the cow when she heard the divine music, and she left her cow as it was, dropped the vessel into which she was milking, and rushed out of the house. Some of them were watching the milk which they had placed on the fire, and they did not wait to see if the milk boiled over. They rushed out. One woman left the pot with the rice boiling in the oven, did not bother about what happened to it. While serving food to the elders, one of the girls heard the music of Krishna's flute and she ran out. They are still sitting there wondering when the food is. People, the women forgot their husband, their elders, their children, their duties, their everything. And the only desire in their minds was to be with Krishna. They even forgot to dress themselves properly. One girl had not finished applying the collyrium in her eyes. Another was halfway through placing a string of flowers on her hair. With her looks all awry, she ran to. People at home tried to stop them and ask them, "Where are you going?" The Gopis simply looked and went off. There were some who had been successfully restrained by the people at home. And these thought only of Krishna and sat there. With their minds set on Krishna, they went into a deep samadhi wherein their sins became destroyed and they attained moksha. It is said that when someone performs acts which are good and collects punya, he reaches punya lokas. When his papa is accumulated, he gets a papa janma, meaning that of birds or animals. If, however, there is a mixture of punya and papa, goodness and sin, punya and papa, he is then thinking on the Lord, and their punya was lost since they thought of the Lord as the lover, and so left as they were with neither papa nor punya. What happens is they reach moksha. After listening to the words of Sukha, King Parikshit asked him, "My lord, my mind is assailed with a doubt. You tell me that these women attained salvation because they loved Krishna, but they did not worship him as Parabrahman. They loved him as if they would a lover who can grant them pleasure. How can their love be rewarded with moksha? Krishna to them was a Jara Purusha and not a god. He was very handsome and desirable, and they were eager to have him. How can you call their love by the name of devotion or bhakti? Elucidate this mystery for me." Good question. Sukha said, "Have you not heard that when someone drinks nectar, even under the impression that it is poison, he does not become affected by the poison, but benefits only by the nectar? Even so, the Gopis no doubt thought of Krishna as an earthly lover. But the fact that Krishna was the Parabrahman changed this love into bhakti and they attained salvation. Have I not told you how Shishupala hated the Lord, attained moksha in spite of his hatred? Because the object of his hatred was a Paramatman, and he had been thinking incessantly on the Lord. Even so, the Gopis, by thinking on the Lord all the time, became released from the bondage called karma. Paramatma and the Pratyeg Atma are the same unpolluted truth. But the avaranas, endless vasanas attached to the Atman during its many transits through world of living cover up the purity and screen it and veil it, and the Brahman is not seen. But Krishna, who was beyond the pale of vasanas, beyond the reach of opposites, was the object of devotion of these ignorant women. And so, the fact that they did not know that he was the Paramatman, the fact that their love for him was sensual, neither of these in any way detracted from the fact that their bhakti was for the Paramatman, and so they attained salvation. Those who have constant desire for him, even constant anger against him, constant hatred towards him, constant love for him, or any other kind of kinship, are sure to attain salvation. Now, Krishna saw all the gopis surrounding. The primary mischief was his. He played the flute. Then he saw all the gopis surrounding him, lost in the music of his magic flute. He looked at all of them and he spoke sweet words. He said, in the middle of the forest, at this time of the night, you have all come here. What can I do, please? Please tell me the reason why you have come here in a group. Why have you come here like as if you are trying to catch me, occupy me? It is late in the night. There may be dangerous animals lurking in the bushes. Please go back to your homes. It is not right that you should be here now. Your kinsfolk will all be waiting for you. Go back before their anger swells up. You must have come to see the river in the moonlight, huh? Look at the forest around you. The beams of the silver moon have made it so beautiful. And the cool breeze which comes after caressing the waves of the river is indeed very soothing to the limbs. Now that you have stood here for a while, please do not tarry, go back to your homes. Your husbands are waiting for you. Please do not tarry. Your children will be crying for your comforting arms around them. You will have to attend to your cows and calves. Then he said, why are you looking so accusingly at me? I am pleased to know that it is so. Have you by any chance come here to spend your time with me? Why are you looking so? I am telling you to go back and you're looking like that. Did I call you? Have you come here to spend time? For someone other than your husband, it is not good for a woman to come here like this. It leads you away from heaven. It is futile and it brings a stigma to your name. It is a secret desire, and as such the fear of being found out is always there. Please desist from this action. Go back home and remember the great devotion you have for me, which is because you have been constantly hearing about my actions, by thinking on me, by singing aloud about me, seeing me often. The devotion will not equal this love, which is wrong. Once again I am asking you, please go back home. The Gopis stood as though they had been carved out of stones. The words of Krishna were unwelcome. They were not pleasing to their ears. They felt frustrated and their faces faded like flowers. Their hearts were filled with sorrow and they cast their faces down. Sighs escaped their red lips and their eyes filled with tears. They stood silent, and Krishna could see their tears glistening in the light of the moon. With soft, timid voices, they began to talk indistinctly to Krishna, who had spoken such harsh words to them. Their tears were falling incessantly, and they paid no heed to the fact that their eye black was all being erased. Before coming, even though they ran, I think they got a good dollop of black and rubbed this thing. Maybe it was not waterproof. Anyway. And the garments had not been worn properly since they had been in such a hurry to reach the presence of Krishna. All these things were unheeded. All that they knew was that their quest was in vain and Krishna had spoken unkindly to them. They all spoke together and one by one they said, "Look here, Krishna, it is not becoming of you that you should talk like this. We have abandoned everything and come to you for succor. Please do not cast us away like this. You talk so glibly about the rules of conduct that our place is in our homes and they should attend to our husbands, to our elders, to our children. You can keep your servants to yourself." Warlike mood. Keep your sermons to yourself. We came here not to listen to a discourse on how to conduct oneself, on how a woman should behave. No. We have come to you trusting that you will never abandon us. You ask us to be faithful to the home, to the husband and the child. If all these do not grant you happiness, what then is the use of such a dharma? Learned ones have said that abandoning these bondages, one should set one's mind on the Eternal One. And we have also been told that you are the Eternal One who has assumed a human form. We know nothing of the Shastras and the nuances of dharma. We have seen the learned ones thinking on you and saying that you are the path to moksha. This we know. Be that as it may, we have come to you because we love you. We are doing only what the wise are doing. Krishna, remember this love of ours, for you have been there birth after birth. It must be that we have met for many births. Otherwise, why this intensity of love that we cannot explain? All these days we were absorbed in our household duties and fairly happy and contented. So we thought, until you came. You stole our hearts, and ever since then we cannot become absorbed in the things that interested us before. It is very strange, but true. Our eyes seek only a sight of you. Our ears are ever waiting to hear the music of your anklets when you walk. You ask us to go back to our homes, but our feet are firmly planted. They refuse to move from here. What will you do? We are aching for a smile from your eyes, for your music, for an embrace from you which will assuage this thirst for you. Once our minds have been led towards your feet, they can think of nothing else, and every action of ours is guided only by the thought of you. Please look kindly on us. We are your slaves. Tell us, which woman, after seeing you and your smiling eyes, and your beautiful face, your broad chest and your long and lovely arms, which woman is going to resist? Please have compassion on us, our condition in which we are. Accept our love. Krishna smiled kindly on them, accepted their offering. Krishna, who was the incarnation of Narayana, who was the Lord of the Lords, was the eternal soul, was the Parabrahman, who had no desires to be fulfilled, pretended to be an ordinary human being and allowed the Gopis to love him, make love to him. Krishna looked like the moon surrounded by the stars. He sang with them, he danced with them, with the fragrance of the Vaijayantimala filling the air. With his hair flying in the breeze, he played with women as though he was enjoying. Embodiment of enjoyment. What is there to enjoy? He was enjoying. After a while, the gopis were so full of Krishna that they thought that Krishna belonged to them and to them only. Each one of the gopis thought to herself, this Krishna has fallen in love with me and he loves no one else. He belongs to me and only to me. Pride found a corner in the heart of every one of them. Krishna had to teach them a lesson and he suddenly vanished from their presence. Despair seized them when they realized that Krishna was not to be found anywhere. Their love had reached the unmatavastha, meaning they had no reason anymore. They sang songs, praised him and recounted his many deeds and his exploits. Gopis wandered in the forest looking for Krishna. They asked the trees if they knew where Krishna was. They became mad. Oh Ashwatha tree, oh banyan tree, did you by any chance see our Krishna who has stolen our hearts? Ashoka, Punaga, Champaka, did you by any chance see our Krishna? He was with us, and in our foolishness we thought we owned him. And now to punish us, he has gone away and left us lamenting. Tell us, if you saw him, Tulasi, Mallika, Malati, did you see Krishna? And so they kept on moaning and weeping and looking for Krishna. They suddenly saw Krishna's footprints and they seemed to be fresh. At once they tried to track him down. They went some distance and found to their dismay that there were footprints of a woman also alongside. Burning with jealousy, they spoke to each other, look, some woman has been dearer to Krishna than all of us. Look at the way the princes are twining with each other. She has been clinging to him all the way. Watch, look at the footprint. And look, suddenly her footprints are not seen at all. Krishnas have sunk deep into the earth. What does that mean? He had asked Krishna to carry her and he has been doing that. Come, let us go further and see where this leads us. Look at the flowers from the creeper scattered there. Krishna must have plucked the flowers for her. Fortunate indeed is the gopi who has claimed such privileges from him. He has been sitting here and he has dressed her hair with the flowers. The gopi who had gone alone with Krishna was also filled with pride. Since she told herself, Krishna loves me the most, He has left all the others behind and come with me. He carried me in his arms and he dressed my hair with flowers. He loves me and only me. I said, I am tired. Without a frown, he raised me in his arms. He asked me to cling to his back. When I was thrilled with the thought that I was one with Krishna, he dropped me and vanished. Where are you? Where have you gone, Krishna? The gopis who were going in search of Krishna found her, and she told them how she too had been abandoned. They all came back to the banks of the Yamuna, and with tears in their eyes and with sobs punctuating their words, they sang the praises of Krishna and prayed to him to come back to them. Krishna knew that they were now rid of their pride, so he appeared before them with a garland of white flowers tossing on his chest, with the fish-shaped earrings glinting in the moonlight, with the peacock's feather dancing among his lovely curls. Krishna came back to their midst. They stood up with great joy and rushed towards him. They all tried to embrace him, to hold his hands, to place their heads on the shoulders, to stay as close to him as they could. They were like the mumukshus who had attained Kaivalya, like the samsarins who had found one who was proficient in Brahma Vidya, who would lead them out of the morass in which they have been caught up, like the Vishwa and the Tejasa which had reached the Shushupti state. That is when the waking state and the dream state have passed, and the Atman reaches the Shushupti state, the deep state of sleep, with a sigh of relief, because this is the state where the opposites go to sleep, where there are no feelings, where there is nothing but peace, dreamless, thoughtless, agitationless peace. The state was short of Turiya, almost there. The night had advanced far. The moon, whose white beams silvered the surroundings, had now reached the zenith. The flowers had all blossomed and the air was laden with their perfume. The night had dissolved in the silver light of the moon, and the river Yamuna, dark in color, seemed to have become golden like her elder sister, Ganga. The sands on the banks of the river were touched by the waves from Yamuna. The music of it was intoxicating. What did Krishna do? No need of an adult-only certificate. Please. He didn't do any such thing. Krishna led the gopis to the sands, and they sat there talking to him, drinking him with their eyes. One of the gopis said, Krishna, I have a doubt which you must clear for me. Krishna smiled and silently asked her to proceed with her question. She said, in this world, there are different kinds of love and different types of people and different types of lovers. Some people are capable only of returning the love given to them. There are others who behave in the opposite way. They give love without expecting love in return. Even if they are not loved, they love others since it is their nature to do so. There is a third category of people who, even when they are loved, do not return the affection shown to them, nor are they affected if they are not loved by others. Tell us which of these types is the best and why. Krishna's face took on a serious look. Now he has to act as the guru. Till now he was playing the flute and playing the fool. Now Krishna's face took on a serious look. And he answered them after a while. The first type you spoke about, those who love and expect love in return are, in my opinion, selfish, bent on their own comfort and happiness. People usually read the Bhagavad only up to that moonlit night. They don't want to read the rest. It's kind of disheartening, right? Krishna's face took on a serious look. He answered them after a while and he said, the first type you spoke about, those who love and expect love in return, are, in my opinion, selfish, bent on their own comfort and happiness. The two people who make up this pair are similar. They have no affection in their hearts, no source of happiness, neither is there dharma in their behavior. It is useful to love and to be loved, and that is just for their own good. There is nothing unselfish or noble about such beings. Second type you spoke of. Those who love, though there is no love given in return, their love is like that of the parents for their children. Such people are very compassionate. They will be very kind and they will make good friends full of affection as they are. There is, you said, another type who are different from both of these. They are incapable of returning the love that is offered to them. What then about the situation when no love is offered to them? These people can be divided into 4 groups or 4 types. Last one, which is that another type who are different from both these types. They are incapable of returning the love that is offered to them. What then about the situation when no love is offered to them? These people can be divided into 4 types. Atma Ramas. 1. Atma Rama. That is to say, people who are self-contained, whose only joy is to revel in the realization of the Brahman. They neither want love from others, nor are they desirous of giving it to anybody else. A second type are the Apta Kamas. That is, those whose every desire has been satisfied, whose hearts do not hanker after anything. Such people have no need of others and they love and hence they are indifferent. The third type is the persons who are ungrateful, who do not have it in them to give anything, but to take from others. The fourth type is called Guru Drohi. Such is the one who has betrayed the affection which elders have for him and behaves disrespectfully towards them. As for me, even when love is showered on me, sometimes I do not return it. Sometimes. The reason is because I want them to love me more, to become more devoted to me, to think on me and only me, to become my bhaktas. Take, for instance, a very poor man who was found well suddenly, won a lottery. If after having it with him he loses it, his pain will be more than when he was poor, and his thoughts will be more intense about wealth, which he had found only to lose. Even so, I vanished from your sight because I wanted to know how dear I am to you and how indispensable I am to you. Your devotion to me has become more now when you went through the agony of losing me for a while. You had abandoned all that you had, till now considered dear to you. To make your bhakti more firm, I did what I did. I will now tell you how touched I am by your love and your unselfish, selfless devotion to me. I will never forget how much you love me. Strangely enough, when they heard the words of Krishna, the Gopis found themselves full of love, but chastened and cleared from the sensual love for Krishna. And their only wish to be was with Krishna forever. Then Krishna suggested that they should dance the Rasa Krida. The Gopis stood in a circle, and between two Gopis was found a Krishna. Each one thought he was holding only her hand. They all sang together and they danced. With silk garments flying in the breeze, with his blue form decked with sandal paste, with his garland of flowers tossing on his beautiful chest, with his golden earrings striking against his cheek, whenever he moved with his smile charming all around him, Krishna danced the rasa with the innocent gopis of Vrindavan on that moonlit night on the banks of the Yamuna. The sky was crowded with all the denizens of the heavens who had assembled there to see Rasa Krida. The heavenly instruments made sweet music, and the Gandharvas sang the praises of the Lord. The tempo of the dance grew faster, and the noise of the anklets on the feet of the women, of their bangles, their bracelets was growing too. Krishna looked like an immense sapphire set in a circle of gold. The celestial damsels were full of jealousy for the Gopis on the earth, who had a glimpse of the good fortune of having the Lord all for themselves. The moon and the planets stopped in their tracks, watching the beauty of the rasa. The night was longer than other nights. Krishna then entered the waters of Yamuna with a crowd of Gopis following him. They swam in the river and they played for a long time. King Parikshit then intervened once again and said to Sukha, "My lord, still I am not convinced by your arguments. How could Krishna, the Sampurna Avatara of Bhagavan Narayana himself, who had been born on the earth for the sole purpose of establishing dharma, was meant to set an example to others so that they could follow him, how could he do this? How could he make love to the wives of other men? How could he behave like a jara to the gopis and make them unfaithful to their husbands? You told me earlier that since he is an apta karma, he has no desires, and so these revels meant nothing to him. But then, from the point of view of dharma, the act was wrong," said Parikshit. Sukadeva said, "You are looking at it like an ordinary human being does. Viewed thus it may appear wrong, but it is not a dharma. If it had been an ordinary human being who had done this, it should have been considered wrong. But here, the love of the women for Krishna was bhakti for the Lord, which everyone has. Their bhakti was rewarded in the only manner which could be understood by them. That was physical. But that does not in any way detract from the truth that anyone who is a bhakta of the Lord will find sayujya with him. Is that not what we desire? A woman, if she is devoted to the Lord and thinks of him day and night, cannot be accused of being unfaithful to her husband. In the end, she reaches him. It is not adharma. The Gopis, on the other hand, were so devoted to Krishna that he decided to reward them even on the earth. And so he granted them oneness with him on the moonlit night. Seems like a lustful revel. It's only the utmost realization of the bhakti that the Gopis experienced. The long, long night came to an end, and the east showed signs of red tint which indicated that Aruna was on his way. Krishna made the unwilling Gopis to go home. And when they went home, they found that no one blamed them for straying away for the whole night. The people at home, because of the yogic power of Krishna, were unaware of the absence of their women. And soon the night became, to each one of them, a beautiful memory which they relived again and again in their minds. It was the festival of Mahadeva. The dwellers of Vrindavan went to the grove named Ambikavanam. It was like a picnic to the children. When the many carts went one behind the other, some went in carts, some walked along. I can see the disappointment in many faces. Rasa Krida is over now, what to do with them? But what to do, the Bhagavat is still there. Srimad Bhagavatam is still there. Sukadeva is still speaking and Parikshit are all listening. It was the festival of Mahadeva. The dwellers of Vrindavan went to the grove by name Ambikavana. It was like a picnic. Youngsters would dance and jump and climb the trees, and so they went to Ambikavana, where there they had to have bath in the sacred river Saraswati. Elders bathed in the river, and then very reverently offered flowers and naivedya to Mahadeva and the Devi. They prayed to the Lord that they should be blessed. They then pacified the brahmanas with cows which would give large quantities of milk, with gold and silk dresses and sweetened food. They went through the rites as prescribed by the sacred books. During the night, when he was halfway through, a huge python, which lived in the neighboring forest, crawled out of its habitat and reached the spot where they were. First it began to swallow Nanda, who was sleeping, poor fellow. He woke up in panic and he shouted, Krishna, Krishna, this big snake is swallowing me, I am helpless. Help me. The people around got up in a flurry and they lighted torches and tried to frighten the snake away by hurting. But nothing would work. Nanda was slowly disappearing inside the body of the python, like the moon under the eclipse. Krishna went near and stood for a while. Then he touched the snake with his feet. The moment he did so, the python lost its form and became transformed into a divine being, that of a Vidyadhara. His form was glowing and he was wearing garlands made of gold on his neck. He prostrated before Krishna with folded hands. Krishna spoke to him. He said, You look like a demigod. You are so handsome. Your form is pleasing to the eye. How did it happen that you were living so long assuming the form of a python? Tell me what caused this. Vidyadhara said, I am a Vidyadhara named Sudarshana. I was once famed in the heavens. I would wander around in my chariot, endowed as I was with wealth and with good looks. I became proud of them. My arrogance was evident to everyone. Once, while passing a group of men, I saw that they were ugly. And in my pride, I did not pause to think, but laughed at them and their ugliness. He was passing full speed on his Rolls Royce when, golden Rolls Royce, when he saw some men there and he thought they were ugly, so he laughed. Unluckily for me, they happened to be the rishis by name Angirasas. They cursed me to assume the form of a python and live on earth. When I see that I have been released from that sinful form by the touch of your sacred feet, I have to change my words and say that the rishis did not curse me but blessed me. Or else I would never have had the good fortune which is denied even to rishis lost forever in meditation, a sight of you in human form. I prostrate at your feet once again and seek your permission to go back to my home. Sudarshana went back to Gandharvaloka, which had been his home. The Gopalas, led by Nanda, could not go back to sleep. They spent the night talking about the many miracles which Krishna had performed. And so on. Now, once again, Kamsa, the great, sitting in his palace, heard this in his drawing room, heard the strains of the veena, and he heard Narayana, Narayana. Narada, the divine sage, knew that with the killing of Arishta, in between Arishta was killed, almost all the myrmidons of Kamsa have been destroyed. He knew that the end of Kamsa was drawing near. Narada decided to speed up the matter really. Going too slow. Narada went to the court of Kamsa. He was received with great respect. After having seated the rishi on the noble seat, Kamsa said, "My lord, it's quite some time since you thought fit to come and see me. When were you here last?" "Oh, I remember," interrupted Narada. "I came to tell you that you were foolish to let Vasudeva keep his other children. And you could not be sure which would be the eighth child of Devaki." He smiled at Kamsa. Kamsa said, "All my attempts have failed, my lord. When the eighth child came, I rushed to the prison where my sister and her husband were kept prisoners. Do you know what happened?" Narada said, "I have heard several garbled versions of it. Tell me exactly what happened." Kamsa said, "It was the most humiliating moment in my life. I went there, and my sister, poor unfortunate woman, held a female child in her arms. I held out my hand for the child, and she said, 'My dear brother, this is not a boy, do not be afraid of a woman,' etc., etc. 'Spare this child for me, let me keep her. This is not a son.' The prophecy would be that the eighth son would kill you. This is not a son. I did not pay heed to her cry. I grasped the child in my left hand. You know how I killed other children. I would throw them in the air with my left hand, and when they descended, I would hold out my sword, and they would be cut into two. New technique. In the same manner, I wanted to kill this child. I threw her up. Do you know what happened? The child stayed in the air, it didn't come down. I rubbed my eyes to see if it was really happening. It was. I stood there with my right hand holding the sword, and my left hand still held aloft, and my face filled with wonder. And then he stopped in the middle. Narada, with a smile in his eyes and also with a touch of compassion. And then what happened? As if he doesn't know anything. And then continued Kamsa. The child changed its form. It was not a child anymore. It was Devi Parvati. She held all the different weapons in her hand. And she spoke to me and she said, Narada said, what did she say? She said, you stupid fool. Do you think you can cheat destiny? The son who is to be your death has already been born. As for me, I am going away from you. I will watch the eighth son of your sister kill you very soon. The child vanished, my lord. I should never have listened to you. I could at least have let my sister keep her children. I have committed the dread sin of killing children. And I have ill-treated my sister whom I loved so dearly, all because of a few words spoken in the air. I am very unhappy. Narada said, did you not make any attempts to trace the whereabouts of your nephew, who has already been born, as the Devi said? Of course I have made attempts at Kamsa. Several attempts. His presence is not certain, but then all the asuras I have been sending to the four quarters have been killed. And they have all been killed by one boy, a youngster, if you please. He is the son of Nanda, the chief of the cowherd clan. I have been told that this boy has beauty which is unearthly, but he cannot be the son of Devaki, since he is known to be the son of Nanda and Yashoda. Narada sat silent for a while. He then said, Kamsa, listen to me carefully. I will tell you where the son of Devaki is. Where is he, my lord? He said, jumping up from his throne. It is his death, right? Please tell me quickly so that I can kill him at once. Narada asked him, sit down. He said, if you promise to be calm and listen to me, I will tell you. I promise to do anything you say, he said. Only tell me where he is. He's in Vrindavan, said Narada slowly. Kamsa looked puzzled. Then are you trying to tell me that this prince of cowherds, Nanda's son, Krishna as he is called, I heard, is this dark-skinned youngster, the supposed killer of Mathura's monarch? You're teasing me, my lord. You can't be serious. Once before you advised me wrongly, I think you're playing a game with me again. Narada said, no, Kamsa, I'm telling you the truth. This young dark-skinned boy, this Krishna, is not the son of Nanda. He is Vasudeva's son. He is going to be your death. Kamsa was speechless with surprise and anger. How did it happen? Vasudeva was in the prison all the time. I had them both guarded all the while. The very air could not move inside the prison without my knowing it. How could the son of Vasudeva have been born in Vrindavan? I think you are misinformed. It is not possible. I will tell you how it happened, said the divine Rishi, and told Kamsa how Balarama had been transferred from Devaki's womb to that of Rohini, another wife of Vasudeva who was living in Vrindavan. He then told him in detail about the events that took place on the night of the 8th day of the dark fortnight. How the child was born, how Vasudeva, to protect it from the sword of Kamsa, took it to Gokula, home of his friend Nanda, and how he exchanged the babies. Now, Narada told the whole thing to Kamsa. Why? Because he was trying to speed up his death. Kamsa's anger had been growing as this tale went on, and it now reached the limit. He drew out his sword and he said, "She has deceived me after all, and Vasudeva too. I will this moment go and kill that Vasudeva and his scheming wife Devaki." Narada said, "There is no use of punishing them now. If you are so desirous, you can imprison them. As it is, you have accumulated enough sin by killing children. Do not add to it. The sin of killing a woman and a sister and that, your own sister. This Krishna has so far killed almost all your people. Try to get him somehow. He is getting to be more than a handful. Try to destroy him and all your problems will be solved." Kamsa said he would make every attempt to get the youngster. Now, Narada, his mission over, took his veena, played it, said Narayana, Narayana, and flew away. What does it mean? If anybody comes in an aircraft with a veena and comes near you and sings and says, "Narayana, be careful." Kamsa summoned the most powerful asura in his retinue. His name was Keshi. Kamsa said, "Look, you must go immediately to Vrindavan and kill those two young men who go by the name of Balarama and Krishna." After dispatching Keshi, Kamsa, the lord of the Bhojas, collected his ministers around. Among them were Mushtika, Chanura, Shala and Toshala. He also summoned his Mahout. He then spoke to them, "Prince, warriors," like Frank Antony's speech after Caesar's death. "Friends, warriors, you're all mighty supporters of me and my throne. You have known now that I have been seeking the hiding place of the young boy who is supposed to be the cause of my death. I have now come to know for certain that it's in Vrindavan in the home of Nanda. Two boys by name Rama and Krishna are there in Vrindavan in the home of Nanda. These boys, I am told, are the sons of Devaki and Vasudeva. I have sent Keshi to destroy them, and I am sure he will come back victorious. If, however, he does not, I depend on all of you to do the needful. You are all famed wrestlers. So when the time comes, I will arrange to have them brought to Mathura. You should arrange arenas for wrestling. And you should destroy these two cowherds who are supposed to destroy me. When the boys are dead, it will seem as though they were killed in fair fight. and not by a planned attack. Bring it to the doorway of the Nartanashala and try to kill these youngsters when they come near you. On the 14th day of the lunar fortnight, I am ostensibly going to perform the yaga by name Dhanuryaga, where the bows will all be worshipped. You should make preparations for the commencement for the yaga even from now by offering sacrifices to the evil spirits. Kamsa, who was proficient in the art of wielding all the many weapons, then called Akrura, one of the Yadavas. Placing both his hands in those of Akrura, Kamsa said, "My dear Akrura, you must now do for me something very dear to my heart. You've been a good friend. You should now try to behave as a friend towards me. There is no better well-wisher for me than you among the Bhojas and the Yadavas. In sacred laws, I have heard that Indra, when he wanted a favor to be done to him, would always approach Narayana. Even so, I am asking you to do me a favor which will benefit me." Akrura waited for him to proceed. He guessed what was coming, but he did not speak a word. Even Kamsa, hardened sinner though he was, had to pause for a while before revealing his thoughts to this good man. "Akrura," he said, "please proceed to the house of Nanda, the cowherd chief. It is called Vrindavana, I am told. The two sons of Vasudeva are there. Bring them to Mathura with you. I cannot brook any delay. I am told by Narada that the Devas went to Narayana and has told them that he will take a human form and a name for the sake of destroying sinners like Kamsa." Those are the words of Narada. They are supposed to be death to me, but I can protect myself. It is only when one is unprepared that death overtakes him. But I will see these youngsters are killed as soon as they arrive in Mathura. I have so arranged their end that no blame will be attached to my name. Bring Nanda and the entire Gopala clan here. I will punish them all for harboring these boys, but that is for later. Now, the first thing is for you to set out as early as possible." Akrura spoke hesitantly and asked, "What exactly are your plans?" Sounded quite mysterious. Kamsa laughed loudly and said, "First, I will arrange it in such a way that they meet my elephant, Kuvalayapida. This monster will crush them to powder." Kamsa paused for a moment. Then he resumed in a low voice, "If they survive this, I have then arranged wrestling bouts with Mushtika and Chanura, who, as you know, are as dreadful as thunderbolts. After the killing of these young men, it will be the turn of Vasudeva, all the Yadavas, Bhojas, Dasharaha, and all their kinsmen. All the Dasharaha will also die, everybody will die. Later will follow the death of the old man Ugrasena and his brother Devaka. If there are any more enemies of mine left, they will also walk the way their brothers trod. The earth will be rid of all my enemies. Jarasandha, the powerful king of Magadha, is my father-in-law. Dvividha is a very dear friend. Sambara, Naraka and Bana are three asuras who are always very fond of me. Banasura is also his friend. They will ever be my friends. With their assurance, I can be the monarch of this entire world and nothing will stand in the way of my ambition. Paused for a few moments. His eyes were dreaming of the day when he would be the sole lord of the entire world. The shake of his head, he came back to the present and said, "But that is all yet to come. Immediate duty which stares you in the face is your journey to Vrindavan. Invite them with a very innocent face. Use soft words. Cajole them into accepting my invitation to Mathura. Tell them about the Dhanuryaga. Describe the beauty of Mathura in glowing terms. And the country-bred yokels are sure to be thrilled at the thought of seeing this great city. Please go and make preparations to leave tomorrow very early in the morning so that you can reach Vrindavan soon." Akrura thought for a while and decided to speak a few words of advice. He said, "My king, you said that you consider me to be your well-wisher. I am pleased with the faith you have in my affection for you. It is because of that love that I have for you that I dare to speak these words to you. I quite appreciate the plans you have made to save yourself from the killing prophecies by the heavens. But then, my Lord, one should realize that success or failure of a plan is not in one's own hands. There are equal chances of the plan succeeding or failing. The wise man should realize this first. It is in the hands of God and not in his. Man has great aspirations. He dreams of many things which he is sure to do. He has many noble thoughts and ignoble thoughts that crowd his mind, but forgets one thing. Once the gods have decided to destroy someone, no amount of cleverness on his part will avert the fate that is in store for him. Please remember my words. As for me, I am but a courtier in your sabha, and my duty is to obey you. I will proceed to Vrindavan tomorrow and bring Rama and Krishna to Mathura. In the meantime, the Asura by name Keshi went fast towards Vrindavan. He was eager to do what he was asked to do. Nothing was too difficult for him, who had a long series of killings to his credit. He was a charge sheeter. He wanted to avenge the death of his friends without whom life had become so dull for him. Who are his friends? All the asuras who were killed. He would succeed where others had failed. So with great expectations he went. Keshi was famed for the shape of a horse which he was wont to assume when he went on his escapades. Even so, here in Vrindavan, he proceeded towards the haunts of Krishna in the form of a horse. His frame was immense and his speed was equal to that of the mind. His mane flew in the breeze and the clouds in the sky were scattered. His eyes were large and red and his mouth breathed fire. His long and powerful neck was terrible in its beauty. He neighed. His neighing could be heard for miles around and his hoofs stamped the earth. While he was galloping here and there looking for Krishna, his enemy Krishna knew who he was and why he had come. He stood alone. He told everybody, "Move out," and signaled to the horse to come near him. Keshi roared like a lion, then angry like a thunderbolt. Fast as the wind during a storm, he rushed towards Krishna, who, he said, has the audacity to beckon him. Saying, come. He came close to the young boy and opened his mouth wide as though he wanted to drink in the entire sky. He then kicked Krishna with his hind leg. A horse's front leg is no use. Hind leg can be dangerous. Even a donkey's hind leg. He then kicked Krishna with his hind leg. Krishna nimbly stepped out of the angle of the kick, and suddenly he grabbed the legs which had just missed kicking him. Holding him firmly in both his hands, he raised the horse aloft like Garuda lifts a king cobra before killing it. Krishna twirled the horse in his arms like a discus and flung it from him. It fell 100 yojanas away from there. Keshi was so strong he was not killed. His mouth was red with blood which was gushing from him. He came again to Krishna. Krishna smiled with glee and thrust his arm into the mouth of Keshi, which was like an open gate. Like a snake enters his hole, the arm of Krishna entered the mouth of the Asura. Once inside, the arm began to swell to immense proportions. Keshi was finding it difficult to breathe. He sucked air in great gulps. But even that was made impossible after a few moments. His huge body was now covered with sweat. His eyes rolled desperately. The last futile attempt to breathe, Keshi died. When he was lying still, Krishna withdrew the arm from inside the mouth of the Asura and told himself that this Asura was almost the last one to have been sent by Kamsa to kill me. So tomorrow, we will start with something interesting. Krishna heard the sounds of the veena and heard the sound Narayana, Narayana. Narada came to Krishna and prostrated before him. First, as usually, spoke to him sweet words of praise. He then in secret spoke to Krishna about the role he had to play in the present avatar of his. Tomorrow.